at that point where George Graham's pretty much assembled that famous back five, if you like, that stalwart of the Arsenal team for years and years to come. Did you know at that time that those players would dominate that defence for years to come?
Yeah, I've got all the bruises. I've got all the scars from them. Trust me, I've got them all. As a youth team player, what George Graham used to do, he used to take the back four probably twice a week. And as the youth team, we used to play, believe it or not, John Lukish, obviously, at the time was in goal. And you had the back four. And he would play 11 against those 5. And we couldn't score. And then what he would do, he would progress it like coaches do. He would put one midfielder in as a screen. Then he'll put 2 midfielders in as a screen. And he'll put more players. He'll put 12 players, 13 players on the pitch just to see if we could unhinge them. But he drilled them that well that they had their distances right, they had their cores right, they had the movements right. And it wasn't just overnight. It was week in, week out, day in, day out. They got it right. They got it right. They got it right. So, and when you watch them on a Saturday, and you're seeing what they're doing, and you're seeing other teams don't know how to beat it. You know, the arm used to go up when they're offside, and you know, every time they put the arm up, the linesman puts his flag up, but they were just so drilled at it, and then, you know, they got better at it and better at it and better at it, and then it was just like clockwork. Once it's like clockwork, they knew when to shift up, they knew when to drop, they knew exactly what to do. So it really was an immense time for them. And you could see, obviously, as a youth team player, and then I started to progress how good they were and how good they could be, because, you know, they were really doing a lot of good performances in the league.
It's about this time that a club legend is signed, or born, if you like, the arrival of Ian Wright into Arsenal. Great friend of yours and someone I know you've got a great lot of love for. What was the first time you met Ian Wright like?
Well, knew Ian Wright from obviously when he was at Crystal Palace. He used to play Sunday League. Heard the name but didn't really know him. But obviously he came through late. So when he got a chance at Crystal Palace and was doing bits at Crystal Palace, Andy Gray was at Crystal Palace. He used to live around the corner from me. He was one of the guys I looked up to because I used to be pals with his brother, Nicky. And Andy was one of my idols at the time because he was making it to be a pro. So he used to be really good to me, so he was there. So whenever we played him, it was like a South London thing, you know. So we used to give them a slap now and again, actually quite a bit. And we used to say to Ray, Rocky used to say it mostly, and then we just used to jump on it. Right, what are you messing about here for? You need to come to the good side. Bit tongue-in-cheek, to be fair, and Wright, you say, I get no change out of this defence. I get none whatsoever. I say, well, you know you're playing against the Arsenal. It's not just Arsenal, it's the Arsenal. So we used to have banter like that. He was a great guy. Used to see each other out on at times as well. And he came to my 21st at the spot in Covent Garden. That was one of our haunts. And really had a good time. So knowing him was good. And then when we signed him, I was excited because I knew he'd had another dimension to what we do, because he was lethal. And I got injured in that pre-season. And then George Graham knew, look, Kev's injured, so I've got to go and do some business. And what great business he done with bringing Ian Wright in.
It developed into a great partnership. Ian Wright was fantastic and lethal for Arsenal that season. Obviously, we didn't get the silverware maybe, but it was setting the tone for the season after, which was a big season for Arsenal in terms of on the cup front, hunting two domestic trophies. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Well, I could tell you about the pain first. Let me tell you about the pain first.
Please do.
When Ian Wright joined, George Graham said to me, he pulled me and he said, you and Ian Wright can't play together because you're too similar. That stunned me a bit, but I was the young one. Alan Smith was the England international. Wright was an England international or near enough. Star striker, most expensive player in Arsenal's history. So I found myself as the odd man out, which, fine. What I done, I dusted myself down, I rolled my sleeves up, and I got on the training pitch with Stuart Houston, and I said, right, I've got to learn what Alan Smith could do, because I know what I can do, what Wrighty does, but I weren't so good at what Alan Smith could do. So I had to...
Being a target man.
I had to start being a target man a bit more, and add that to my game, tidy that up. And, you know, I went away, I worked at that, and it all culminated in the Sheffield Wednesday game at Highbury, where it was 1-1. With 20 minutes to go, I came on and we ended up winning the game 7-1. Me and Wright got paired together and we went crazy from there. So that was kind of the next season. So all of that season and a little bit of the next, I found myself kind of as the odd man out. I was playing bits out of position, just filling in. But I loved Arsenal, so it wasn't a matter of knocking on the manager's door. I wouldn't dare do that. I wanted to get better, and it helped me improve.
Great cup run, not so great in the league that season, but the 1-0 to the Arsenal really continued and really built a reputation as a fantastic cup team, playing sides and over that one appearance. I said, so hard to beat with that back five. Was it a great time to be involved with the club?
Well, it's always great to be involved with Arsenal. Of course it is. The interesting thing about it was that transition from a league winning side to a cup side. Because, you know, as a player, you realise you've got a target on your back. And that's why it's so difficult to repeat. That's why the great Liverpool sides and, you know, were incredible, because to be able to reset the button and be able to go and do it again and again and again took some doing, and it really does. And, you know, we missed the season. We won it in 89, missed it in 90, which is Liverpool's last time of winning it, and then we done it again in 91. But when Ian Wright came, I think the dynamic of the team changed. I think Alan Smith suffered a bit because there was a lot more goals shared out amongst the team. But I think Wright was such a focal point in that team that Wright got the majority of the chances, and he took most of them. But we didn't score as freely as we could from other areas of the team. So that's why that transition happened, and it's not Wrighty's fault. It was just how the game went. You know, Wright is such a fantastic character and a big character that people just play to his strengths. And when you play to somebody's strengths, they're going to do well, but maybe the collective, as a league-winning side, that suffered a little bit.
What's your memories of the FA Cup winning team, of the FA Cup winning run? What do you remember from that?
Well, I remember Tony Adams fell down some stairs and cracked his head open. That's what I remember. I do remember that. It was a run. Funny enough, I think that year we beat Shrewsbury. We were in there. It was a 1-0 win at Shrewsbury. It's weird because my lad's there on loan at the minute. You know, it's crazy.
Do you ever mention that to Tyrese about the 1-0 win over the Shrews?
No, I don't actually. I think he's heard it about 100 times from the people at Shrewsbury. You know, the Arsenal came down to their old stadium and played them. But, you know, the FA Cup is still such a prestigious trophy that when you're young, I remember David O'Leary saying, you know, it's such a fantastic trophy to win, guys. You know, you can't take anything for granted. You've got to take it game by game. And that's what we've done. Because we missed out a couple of seasons before, losing to Spurs in the semi-final, where we were winning the league. And you thought, oh, you know, it was great to get there. And we thought, we're winning the league by a canter. You know, let's go and do the spuds, you know. But it didn't quite work out like that. That had an inspired day. We had an off day, and they beat us. So to get them back in the semi-final, that's the one I really remember, at semi-final against Spurs, and it was payback, and we ended up beating them 1-0. Tony Adams scored the late goal. And, you know, we got through, and we're playing Sheffield Wednesday again. 2 cup finals, League Cup and FA Cup, Sheffield Wednesday. You know, it's never happened before, 2 teams playing each other in 2 domestic cups, but what a fantastic time.
What do you remember about the League Cup final?
League Cup final, I remember it was a hot day, sunny day. There was a lot riding on this one because whoever won this one probably had a little edge over the opposition for the FA Cup final. You know, that's what we're going into. Because football's a game of small inches and small edges. And just to have a little inch on somebody means a lot in this game. So that's what we set out to do. And it was a titanic battle because they had some really good... I mean, Viv Anderson played for them. Carlton Palmer. Mark Bright was there. John Arks. Paul Warhurst was there. He was doing bits for them at the time. You know, I think Worthington played for them. Nigel Pearce. They had a top team. They had a good, strong, solid team. And you know, it was a battle. It was a battle, and I don't want to bore you with the game because everybody knows what happened in the game. We ended up winning the game 2-1. But Stephen Morrow, who's in the youth team with us, we won the FA Youth Cup together. He scored the winner in the game, and I remember hugging him and saying, "Morsey, you've done it." And it was just like elation. He'd won the game, and then I didn't even see what happened when Tony Adams picked him up. I didn't even see it. And then all I saw was people rushing to him. Obviously, Rudders has probably had him on his shoulder and let him go, and he's toppled over the back, and he's done his arm in. So he had to be ambulanced to hospital. You know, couldn't even get his medal. So, you know, I think that was the one where Merson's giving it all that on the pitch at the time. So obviously you go out, you put a bit of a dampener on, but you got to try and enjoy it as best you can. Went up, got the medals, and you know, Stephen Morrow was in hospital. It was crazy.
You mentioned obviously Merson with the celebration. What was the drinking culture and the card school culture like from inside the club? Obviously, it's been well documented over the years. Is there anything or any light you can shed on that era?
Well, it was the era of drink. You know, you fit in and you had to have a drink. You know, we had a Tuesday club, and the Tuesday club, it was more of a camaraderie thing, to be honest, because on Tuesday, what we used to do, we used to go to Highbury and we'd run. You do a lot of running, then you go into the gym and you'd work out, and then you go into the indoor five-a-side, and then you play in there. So it was a long day. So you were knackered. So in order to unwind, to let some pressure off, because usually we were off on the Wednesday, we'd go and have a drink. Go and have a drink, have a bite to eat, and that escalated then into, you know, shall we kick on? So everyone say, yeah, let's kick on. We're young, you know, we're young guys. So the Tuesday Club became very prominent in what we've done. But the togetherness and the stories and the banter, it was legendary. So that grew and grew and grew with each team. And new players came in. They then became part of the Tuesday Club. And it was amazing, you know. It was that togetherness. And it's infectious. It really is infectious. Obviously, it won't happen now, but that was the done thing then, because there weren't none of this recovery stuff that they have now. Drink was our recovery from the aches and pains.
We know how much the North London derby means to the Arsenal fans. How much did it mean to the Arsenal players? How much did it mean to you personally, Kev?
Well, it meant everything to me. I was one of those youngsters who supported the team, who weren't playing for the team at the time, who used to... Remember, Arsenal used to play Spurs on New Year's Day and Easter. So one of those dates, I used to be travelling from Brixton with my mates to Seven Sisters. Then all the Arsenal fans would congregate, and then we'll walk up Tottenham High Road to the ground. So I was one of them kids who used to do that. So being a player now, the onus is on us. And this is the special thing about coming through the ranks at Arsenal. That was always inbuilt in you then, because, you know, Tottenham were the enemy. You know, beating Spurs was everything. So even as you come through the ranks, you come through the youth team, the academy, you come through the youth team, reserves, and then the first team. Obviously, everything's magnified in the first team. And that was the one you didn't want to lose. You wanted to win every time. Can't win every time, but you didn't want to lose, that's for sure. And, you know, there's been some titanic battles, but beating Spurs is nothing better as a Gooner than beating Spurs, even as a first-team player. It made your week. People talking about the North London derby 2 weeks in advance. So to win it was special.
David Seaman obviously replaced John Lukic a season earlier. How important was David Seaman to that team? How good was David Seaman as a goalkeeper, in your opinion?
Dave Seaman was world class. I think what he brought to the team to add to that back four was his calmness. He's such a big character, but he was so calm on the pitch. He had great hands. He had a great feet. He'd come and make taking crosses effortless. He's a fantastic shot stopper. But he brought a calmness to that back four. You know, they'd had John Lukic in. John Lukic was a good goalkeeper, but Dave Seaman was an upgrade, I've got to be honest. And he just made them better. He really did. And you know, culminating in that losing one game that season was absolutely amazing. So
played every league game as well, Seaman that year.
Yeah, he played every league game, but he was driven. Dave Seaman was driven. It was fantastic. He came from QPR and came to Arsenal, and you know, he fitted right in straight away. Loved his fishing, and
he loves his fishing.
He loves his fishing, and you know, he was just he was a joy to play. He was a really good teammate as well, by the way. And him and Bob Wilson forged a great partnership. And the funny thing is, sometimes me and Ian Wright and Alan Smith used to go with the goalkeepers because they used to put such good drills on that it used to sharpen the strikers. So, you know, Dave Seaman played a hand in the strikers getting better as well.
How important was Bob Wilson to David Seaman's progression and development at Arsenal?
I think Bob Wilson, who's a fantastic Arsenal man, ex-goalkeeper and stalwart, he was essential for Dave Seaman because Bob Wilson used to give him the right information at the right times. He used to bollock him at the right times. He used to make sure he spoke really well of him and bigged him up when he needed to. So he knew exactly what made Dave Seaman tick after a while. And he would be that, you know, that father figure to Dave Seaman. And I'm sure Dave Seaman will tell you himself, you know, without Bob Wilson there, conducting his training and really making those goalkeepers work hard, he wouldn't have been the goalkeeper that he became.
How good was the South London Brazilian that is David Rocastle? How great was he to play with?
I mean, Rocky was special. He really was special. I mean, we say that the South London Brazilian, but he really was. He really was. It was like the ball was glued to his feet, and especially the right foot. Now, he was so good, George Graham used to restrict him in training.
Really?
Yeah. He used to restrict him in training. So let's say we're having a practice game, he would restrict him in, you can't dribble in your defensive third, you can't dribble in your midfield third, but you could dribble in the attacking third. So he was the only one who had to play two-touch there. Or everyone else could take 2, 3, 4, but Rocky was the only one who could take 2 touches at certain points of the game because he was that good. You know, George Graham said, listen, I'd have to give you a ball and a ball for the rest because you were that good. He really was a special, special talent.
I want to talk about that Cup Winners' Cup side. Great achievement for you guys to go and win that Cup Winners' Cup. 1-0 victory over Parma. I remember it at the time. It was fantastic. I remember watching it. I remember the moustaches with Ray Parlour and Eddie McGoldrick, which was a quality moment in the club's history. Can you talk me through it a little bit?
Yeah, that's our last European trophy. When I look at the squads, you look at the Parma squad, and you look at the squad we had at Arsenal in that game. Wow, you know, Dave Villa, Stephen Morrow, Ian Selly, Dave Villa, the likes of myself, Alan Smith, Merson. Then you had the back four and Dave Seaman in goal. You know, you wouldn't expect Eddie McGoldrick was in there, John Jensen, all those guys. You think to yourself, that team beat Zola, Aspria, Brolin, Cripper, you know, Sensini, all those guys in a final. But there was some gamesmanship, George Graham, because what happens is we trained before they trained at the ground. And George Graham and their staff were talking as we were coming off. They were starting to, in dribs and drab, come out of the dressing room. So we got in the dressing room after they'd gone in, and George Graham said, you won't believe, you know, you want to hear the bonuses they're on, you know, they're on 6-figure bonuses and stuff. And we were like, what? 6-figure? At a principle, we got to beat them. So George Graham was really smart like that. He just added another layer of, you know, that steely determination to beat them. And it was our first European final we got to with that regime. You know, to win that trophy was amazing. I mean, look, we had a fantastic run in that Cup Winners' Cup. And, you know, people sometimes put a dampener on winning these trophies, but any European Cup is a good cup to win because it's just such a different journey. And in Denmark, the amount of gooners that were there, a load of my mates were there. You know, it was fantastic, really was.